Flyers see them. The final game of this homestand on Saturday. Here's Brassard centering Ellis. He scores! Two newcomers team up. Ellis is first as a Flyer. Makes it 4-0 Philadelphia.
Well, we talked about how vocal Ellis is. Could hear him yelling for the puck from up near. And Brassard took one glance, made an incredibly good pass right on the tape of Ryan Ellis, and he snaps it home.
Hey everybody, it's Isaiah. Just reminding you that FlyersNittyGritty.com and the O&B Puckcast are brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. Hey, do you have damage to your home? Not sure who to call? We suggest that you call Summit Public Adjusters before your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be very stressful. Let Summit take the stress out of the claims process. From storm damage to your roof, to toilet overflows, to broken pipes and fires, Summit gets you the most money for your repairs. So next time Mother Nature leaves you in need of repairs, call Summit Public Adjusters at 215-752-0560 or visit summitpublicadjusters.com. Licensed in PA and New Jersey.
And we are back. It is Isaiah, and we are here with the O&B Puckcast, episode number 134. Your Philadelphia Flyers have played 4 games. They are 2-1-1, and they're heading on a road trip. Alberta and British Columbia are going to play Edmonton, the Vancouver Canucks, and come back versus the Calgary Flames. It's a shame they couldn't get everything done in Alberta before they leave, but you know how that goes. With us tonight, of course, to my left, Chef to the left, B. How you doing, man?
How you doing? Great. I'm just happy we got some hockey to watch, and surprisingly, I forgot how much I missed it. I'm watching as many games as I can get my hands on every night, so it's great.
Yeah, and that ESPN2, which I just subscribe to for the boxing, it comes in handy now for the hockey. So getting a lot of mileage out of that. Of course, we if you listen to us the last couple shows, you know, Dan, the great Dan Silver, had a big road trip going to Flyers games. He was out in Vegas watching the Raiders spank the Eagles, unfortunately. But he is off tonight. He should be back for our next show. Hope he has a great time out there. But we have a couple guests, one returning to us. His name is from FlyersNittyGritty.com and Steel Flyers, Hockey Writers Inc. podcast. Lance Green, how you doing, man?
I'm all right, guys. How are you?
Doing great. And a first-timer here from Philly Sports Network, writes a lot of great stuff for PSN. His name is Eric Reese.
Thank you. Happy to be here. First time. Hopefully not the only time, but let's get into some Flyers hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think right now is a good time. 4 games, homestand. It was kind of like, I mean, for me, it was like kind of like a B- if I had to give it a rating. You know, there's some good, some bad. It's more good than bad, but you were left with a little bit of a feeling like it could have been a little better. Lance, let me start with you. Just general impressions about the Flyers, knowing that we can't come to dramatic conclusions after 4 games.
No, definitely can't. It's a lot of new faces on this team. A lot of people are going to have to get used to one another. They kept a lot of them in the lineup and together through the preseason, so they started out pretty good together. And obviously, we got to think that both Kevin Hayes and Wade Allison are still out of the lineup. Those are going to be some big names and some big additions when they both come back. But, so far, I like Restalainen coming in and adding that physical presence. And definitely, Cam has been a phenomenal force and exactly what the team needed for the last couple years is in a true scorer. So really excited to have somebody on the team now that will just fire the puck at will and really just bringing that whole complete game back to the Flyers. I think they're a complete team now. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Eric, maybe you want to expand on that, looking at the defense and thinking about Carter Hart and seeing that Ryan Ellis is out already and is not going to be able to play, at least versus Edmonton, as he tries to keep a day-to-day injury from expanding into something that could, last for several games.
Yeah, with Ryan Ellis being out, it's definitely something that you don't want from somebody who's going to be your top pair defenseman alongside Provorov for years to come. But you got to make do with what you have, and I actually do like Braun in that circumstance playing on the top pair with Provorov, only because he was familiar with it last season. He had to do it more than a few times. I actually really like the fact that Nick Seeler gets more of an opportunity on the third pair as well. I know it's not ideal because of the defensive units and how the lineups normally looked. Ristolainen, in my opinion, has been the bright spot of the second pair. I thought the second pair before the season began probably had the most amount of question marks regarding any of the pairs on the lineup, just because how is Sanheim going to really play with Ristolainen? But as of right now, I have to say that with Ellis out of the lineup, it's not a nervous thing with the Flyers. They actually went out of their way and found replacement seventh defenseman. We knew what we had in Morin, and quite frankly, I do like Seeler a lot better than Morin, even if Morin was healthy.
Yep, there's some people that would adopt that opinion for sure. Chef, you look at the situation with Ryan Ellis. It was something we were going to expand upon, but I know you want to comment a little further. Try to work in there the idea that Ryan Ellis was available because injuries were kind of baked into his acquisition, and that's why you pay a top pairing defenseman $6.25 versus the $9 million a lot of these free agents were getting, like Dougie Hamilton and Seth Jones.
Well, you get what you pay for, and with the Ryan Ellis thing, I think it was come to be expected. I think, they were over-under will probably be about 16 games this season. I'm guessing somewhere around there, maybe 17, maybe even 20, that they thought that they would have to either sit them because of maintenance or because they want to make sure that they have them reserved on, kind of almost like not playing a goalie on a back-to-back kind of situation. If they're going somewhere and they know they're going to have 2 tough games in a row or something, I figured that would come into play, especially, not that they're coddling them, but maybe they are coddling them, as opposed to the pairing of the Risto and Travis pairing. I don't know if it's done cooking yet. It's too small a sample size, and I hate using that word sample size, but it's too small to really come out with the full thing. There's some bright spots, obviously. Sanheim's play has been a little bit out of the two of them. You're getting what you paid for out of Ristolainen. Okay, but my fear is this. My fear that their skill level or their ceiling for each of those players is not going to outweigh their low hockey IQ, and combine it with those two players together on a pairing together, that kind of makes me nervous because it doesn't look like they're, a couple times I'm seeing the same mistakes being made already as a pairing. I know, like I said, they have only had 2 games together, but I want to start seeing a better hockey sense. I don't want to see those stupid blind passes to the left. I think it hurt them a couple times. So my fear is like I said, their hockey IQ doesn't outweigh the ceiling for each of their other abilities.
Well, that's certainly a concern. Eric, because you wrote an article about Sanheim and his struggles, I want to go to you now specifically. Let's drill down on that and then Lance, we'll get to you and we'll talk about these goaltenders and what could be in the offing later in the season.
I look back at what Chuck Fletcher alluded to before the season. He was talking about the defensive makeup from 2020 and 2021 being the issue. So when I look at the makeup, I think of, offensive defensemen, two-way defensemen, defensive defensemen, and nothing in my mind has changed on the second line. I think we have a more physical combination that was Sanheim and Myers. And that's not a blow to Ristolainen, because Ristolainen is the positive there. He needed to be physical. We're a lot more physical on that second pair. It's just sort of not outweighing the mistakes from last year, and that's where I talked down about Sanheim, where he does kind of need that help in the center of that slot where, Ristolainen's been out of place. Okay, but Sanheim's not covering him. If you put, in my opinion, this is what the article was more so about, if you were to put Sanheim down on the third line to shelter those minutes with a guy that's more defensive-based position-wise, at least like Braun, I think that works out a lot more. And he put Yandel up top so he can work the blue line with Ristolainen. To me, that's just the defensive makeup there. Sanheim, in my mind, will always be an all-offensive defenseman. Well, Ristolainen sort of is too. He's not really – he's definitely not a defensive defenseman, and two-way defenseman's kind of calling it a stretch. You need somebody that's going to complement that. And I think Yandel is more of a two-way defenseman to pair with Ristolainen, and then Braun is – really helping out and complementing the back end with Sanheim.
I don't know if I quite agree with you there.
Okay.
Just when you look at that, especially like on that Huberdeau game winner, that's a Yandel turnover, and he's known for making that big mistake. In a lot of ways, Sanheim and Yandel have a lot in common. You're hoping that Sanheim could become more like Yandel, a little bit more sure-handed, think the game a little better. But I think you made a really good point, Eric, in that we don't know if Sanheim's IQ is as high as maybe we thought, and that might have been brought out in bold relief by the fact that Phil Myers, who's probably lower than both of them in the IQ department, is now out of the picture. So, right. Lance, let me go to you about any comments you have there.
Yeah, a couple of things there. Sanheim's always been puzzling to me. Why the team celebrated him so much ever since he's came in. To be as big as he is, he's not physical. He doesn't clear the front of the porch. He tends to go sometimes when he needs to stay back. Just as a goalie aspect, I would hate him playing in front of me. But with that, I really thought Risto was going to come in and help him in that aspect. Like Eric said, he's not really a stay-at-home defenseman, like would help Sanheim more. But I thought that physical presence and everything would kind of shore up Sanheim's game a little bit, since he is so lacking in that. As far as moving him down, I think that would be wise, but I don't see anybody being able to step up in that sense. Yandel, if we look back at what he did in Florida when key people there on defense got hurt, he didn't play that great when he was thrown into those fill in those bigger skates. So I'm really reluctant to do that as well. Braun, I just don't think he's a top pairing guy either. He can't physically skate with the top line guys, and he kind of gets burned in that sense as well. So there's really no clear, obvious choice when you lose somebody for a couple games like Ellis. It really shows his worth to the lineup and why we went out and tried to get somebody of his caliber. But yeah, I mean, it's going to hurt if he stays out 10 to 15 games every season, like he's done the last couple of years in Nashville. So a lot to think on that defense. Luckily, the goaltending, as far as the NHL level goes, has been solid. And, hopefully they can stay there. I think they got a couple of hard games coming up on this West Coast trip here. We already saw what Vancouver was able to do and that young team there, and got some great goaltending there as well. And it's just not going to be an easy game at all when you're going up against the type of players they have in Edmonton on offense. So we shall see.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric.
Yeah, I was going to kind of piggyback off of what Lance was saying regarding Yandel. To me, the turnovers that untimely turnovers, because that's what they are. They come at the worst possible times, especially down in the defensive zone. I would almost take that over constantly being out of position and constantly not throwing the body when you need to throw the body, clearing the slot. Because if Ristolainen isn't clearing the slot, if he's kind of playing down low, goal line extended, you can't rely on anybody else. And that one-timer is going to be there all the time, and there's going to be nothing but forwards crashing. I would almost take Yandel having the idea and the intelligence to plug the slot up. I'll do that versus, just kind of worrying about the one or two turnovers that I'll have in the defensive zone. If you think about it as well, that's something you can preach about Provorov since day one. So I think that's something that, it's an issue, but you're kind of weighing out, what's the bigger issue versus, small potatoes at the end.
Yeah. And you know what I think? I think that at least for the first half of the season, until somebody like Cam York shows that he really belongs here, or even Zamula maybe skips by him, at least in terms of being able to function on a third pair, because I think Zamula's ceiling is not as high as York. We're going to have this little bit of a dilemma when Ryan Ellis is out of the lineup. And I think we're going to have to live with that. So, yeah. So that's where we're at with that. So, Chef, any further comments before we get to looking at some of these games?
No, I think the boys covered it pretty well there. It's going to be shuffle, and I actually think that the coaching staff and Fletcher and upper management knew about it, and I think that's why they acquired Yandel. I think that's why they acquired Sealer. I think that's why they have all these other pieces in here. Just to back up what Eric and Lance both just said, you have two guys that are on the precipice of actually being ready. See it with York and Zamula, and if they're we all anticipated that somewhere down the line after Yandel breaks the record, if he's playing half decent and he gets that time in, if he breaks that record, then and they're he's not quite performing up to standards, that one of these guys is going to get a shot, whether it's Sealer or the other two young kids, or Sam when he comes back. There are alternatives, is what I'm saying, and it's not something that it wasn't prepared for. We shouldn't be surprised about any of this.
Yeah, and like we said, that we don't think that this team, as presently constituted, is going to be the one that you're going to see come playoff drive. I think Chuck is prepared to and will be put into action to change the team as he needs to do. So, and I don't know how long you can rely on $900,000 players like Bassard, Sealer, or he's not even making that much, or Yandel for that matter. So whatever we get out of them is a bonus until some things change, whether the young kids emerge, whether Wade Allison comes back, throwing it all together. But, gents, why don't we go to the Florida game, a 4-2 loss. It was an empty net, so 3-2. To me, that was a winnable game. Carter was playing fairly well, and there was a pivotal moment in that game that I want to highlight for me. And I tend to look at games in this manner. Lance, I'm going to go to you. If you can remember, it's late in the second period. Flyers are up 2-1. And, there's only like about a minute and a half left. And I'm thinking to myself, I see Konecny make this kind of low percentage play from behind the net that ends up being an outlet pass for the Florida Panthers. And the first thing that comes to mind is, and this is my crazy mind, this is free association, Cam Atkinson won't make that play. Cam Atkinson's here to show TK not to make such a dumb play and be a smarter player. What happens? They'll get on the ice, they get the goal, then like in the next sequence, they're on, the Flyers are take a penalty, and the whole momentum of the game has changed. What were you thinking along the similar lines?
I think so. With the addition of Cam, he fills so many needs on this team, and then especially as like you were alluding to there, with just the consummate professional out there on the ice. He knows what to do. He seems to always be in great positioning. He is always hightailing it down and back up of the ice at all times. He is just a phenomenal addition to this team. And, I really hope that he can get Konechny really going again. Now, Konechny's, been able to get into the offense again, whereas, last year he really had a down year or whatever like that. But, I think beyond that, I think he'll be so good for players like Farabee as well, and further develop him as we once thought maybe Konechny was going to be. I think Konechny's kind of taken a step back, but hopefully, with some of that, I think they've opened the offense a little bit more as well. In that same token, now that Voracek is gone, you're seeing the captain, Claude Giroux, really get in there and be dominant on the power play again, and actually willing to shoot the puck again. It's like Cam's kind of came in and elbowed him and, said, hey, try this once in a while instead of always passing the puck. So it's just a lot of good I see that they can build on from these games, but definitely Florida, the record perceives them. It is a phenomenal team, and they only keep getting better as their drafts as well just help them year in and year out. So there's definitely no slouch team that they played Saturday, in Florida. That game, I expected them to lose, sadly, but I think they played better than expected with with the type of people out that were out. So
yeah, exactly. I think Ellis, like I said, is this year's Niskanen in a lot of ways. And look, everything Chuck did was to try and lower goals against, but also try to impact the culture. And I think part of that culture is what kept them in the game when they played Florida. Carter's got his head on straight. I don't blame him for any of the goals. Huberdeau makes a very fortuitous play to get that rebound after, Carter makes a really nice stop on a breakaway. So, all things considered, Florida is a powerhouse right now. Of course, there's some other things that are looming that are in the offing with them. So we'll have to see how that goes. Eric, chime in there.
Yeah, I was just kind of going to echo the same sort of things. To me, however, it wasn't the Konechny play, so I was kind of getting a little bit ahead of myself when I heard you talk about the end or the later parts of the second period. To me, it was obviously the goal sequence. I believe it was Owen Tippett. And it was just a soft zone that I guess zone's a bad word. It's more so like a soft coverage in transition that Ristolainen and Sanheim went into, and it just allowed Tippett just to, really tip it in the back of the net. Like, I just didn't think that we had two defensemen skating with Owen Tippett that it would just be that easy to play. And, Sanheim after the game, he says he wanted that goal back. I'm like, yeah, but this is one of those times where it's almost academic that you need to throw a hip, knock somebody off balance, knock a player off the puck, or knock them at least off their lane. You can't just allow someone to put a stick out and, everything, physics does the rest of it. It just can't be that easy. And to me, that takes away the momentum that ties the game going into the third period and then going into more penalty trouble. You can't do that. You can't commit penalties and play just undisciplined against a team like the Florida Panthers, who will burn you in transition when you do not have Ryan Ellis. You needed to play picture-perfect defense. No detail could go unturned. You had to, honestly, capitalize on every power play opportunity. Unfortunately, the balance kind of goes deeper into the Florida Panthers once Nicolas Aube-Kubel commits that penalty to open the third period. Then, kill that penalty. We think everything's even. We think everything's square, and then Johnny Huberdeau just had a heck of a game. There's really nothing you can say about that. He scores a power play and a shorthanded goal. To be the special teams dynamo and to be I believe he was the first star of the game. He's earned every opportunity that game. Every time that puck was in the back of net, you can almost bet that Huberdeau's fingerprints were somewhere on that sequence.
I think he's definitely one of the most underrated players in the league. Just because he plays for Florida, people don't always, put him in the picture of some of the other greats in the league. But definitely he's a presence down there that is going to be a great player for quite a while still.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, Florida came of age last year in the playoffs. They really took it to Tampa, and it looked like they were going to run over them in the very beginning. When Tampa found their sea legs, obviously they won the whole thing. But I think they were poised to really do something special this year. They had Bennett late in the year. I was a guy I wanted for the Flyers. They had Reinhart, who I wanted instead of Ristolainen because it just made more sense. But hey, I can't keep saying that every show. People are going to get on my Chef. That was a real rocket from Claude Giroux. Lance mentioned that the Flyers look like they're more willing to shoot. Although I thought, on Saturday, I thought they went back a little bit to trying to tie a bow around some place. It should have been a little bit more, a little bit more of a gunner,
Yeah, and I guess a lot of people chalk that up to Bob, right? I mean, Bob always plays us hard. I think that the players, and if you see it, you'll have the usual culprits making that extra pass, like JVR, G, TK.
Yeah.
Well, I think the younger players and the new players were like, oh, it's just another game. But I think the other players remember that voodoo that Bob seems to have on the Flyers. I mean, ever since he left, he just stands on his head whenever he plays us. So I mean, it's not an excuse. I'm not saying it's an excuse. I'm just observing that it was more probably. I mean, I noticed that was an extra pass here and there. I couldn't tell you exactly if it was the older players or as opposed to the newer acquisitions or the younger kids, but I can make that a safe assumption. I think, and I think that would be true to the case. But either way, I mean, they were still in this game, and that's what I like. We talked, you briefly touched on the culture. They didn't give up. I mean, like if this was the Rangers last year, this game would be, after that game, it would have came back and got another one like right away because this team was just too weak, soft in that area. So I like the fact that they were never really out of it. I like the fact that they played hard, and who knows, when they have their other players back, and they have the full complement. We still haven't seen the full complement of this team and the full potential of this team. So just imagine what, a Kevin Hayes, maybe a Wade Allison and a Ryan Ellis all in the lineup will do in a 7-game series against the Panthers. I think it would be an incredible series to watch.
Well, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how things play out, what kind of team the Flyers really are, because with some of these guys in and out of the lineup, it's hard to really get the cohesion they need to get to that level. Right now, they're not there. We'll see what happens, Eric.
Yeah, I was going to kind of bounce off the whole culture aspect. When you're watching the game on the ice, what are some things that you can pick up that say, hey, this culture is different? Like for me, it's last season, how many times did you see the opponent score 2 goals within a minute? And now it's kind of flipping a little bit where the Flyers are putting back these back-to-back goals and getting themselves back into games.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good observation. The Flyers would finally come back and they get scored upon. They would try to establish momentum, and then they would get crushed, or like you said, the team would score a couple in a row against them. You had Nolan Patrick fighting when he wasn't out with an upper body injury, which I think he is now, is out. He got a goal the other night. That's good.
He got 1 goal and then he went out injured.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds like if you see his mopey hair flopping around, it would have been a Nolan Patrick hat trick. So there you go.
Yeah, you get the goal, you get like an attempt at a fight, a headache, and the mope. So it's all good. Anyway, special teams are humming along here. The Flyers, this is an area of big concentration. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. we got to move on from what was in yesteryear of mediocrity. We got to start a new era. So the Flyers are 4-4-11 on the power play, 36%. That's not going to last, but we can get back to where they were in 20, where they were in the top 10 or 11 in both PK and power play. And PK, by the way, is 81.3%. So that's good. If you can get 80, that's where you want to be. You want to be above there. So, Chef, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I would say this: you're going into you're going into a nice little swing here. And speaking of PK and power play, you need to stay out of the box, especially against Edmonton. What are they firing at? Like 57% right now?
47, I think.
I thought it was like 57. Well, whatever it is, it's too freaking high. I just have to say, like, you need to stay out of the box. You need to play your game, reserved, and they need to focus in, because if they let this game get away from them, they're going to let especially with Edmonton, they're going to let this whole road trip get away with them. They need to be a little more disciplined. If this means, like Eric said, maybe Knack doesn't play, I think he might have to play, because I think the COVID rule is the 10-day rule is in effect in Canada, and that's why Brown is not available, I think.
Right.
Or
we mentioned that. Yeah.
You don't. I don't know if you have the personnel to flop in and out for this, but I'm just saying, I want to nip this in the butt right now. Like, don't be crazy, and be disciplined. You can't afford to take these stupid penalties and make those stupid. I think I'm leaning more towards like Knack and TK, who are the usual suspects on his team, to do something not so hockey IQ'd, let's just say.
That's one way to put it. Yeah, I looked it up. It is 47% for the Edmonton Oilers. That's good enough. I mean, I'll take 47 if they don't want it. But Lance, so the Flyers do have some top scorers. Some players have been really playing well through 4 games. We got three goals, 3 assists for Joel Farabee. Cam Atkinson, 4 goals, 1 assist, doing that Cy Young thing for 5 points. Brassard, 1 and 4 for 5 points. Couturier, 1 and 4 for 5. And we got Konechny with 1 for 3 and 1 for 4, and 3 and 1 for Claude Giroux. He's going to even out that goal to assist ratio, because that's just his nature. And we're getting some offense from defensemen.
Yeah, so I mean, when you look at who the Flyers are really getting point production from, they're getting point production from the people that they are expected to get it from this year, and that's great. You're not trying to get a goal off of the 4th line and to win a game or tie it up now. Now you're seeing, Farabee, leading the team in points, Atkinson coming in and scoring, a goal a game. Who would have thought he would have done that? But I mean, he is doing what he was brought in to do. A player that I really like a lot, and I think adds a lot to this team, is Brassard. A very, very professional veteran that's going to play that 200-foot game like AV likes, and is showing what he can do. When someone like Kevin Hayes went down with injury, everybody thought Frost was going to be able to jump in, and he kind of failed to do it in preseason. So Brassard stepped up and has done so flawlessly, I believe. And I think he's only going to make, when Hayes comes back, that 3rd or potentially even 4th line center just that much better when he does come back in. And like we kind of said before, Giroux and Konechny have really been able to score at a point per game pace again. That is what you need from these guys. Now, if only we could get JVR really going, that would be even better, because, what do we pay him? $7 million, and, he hasn't got a goal yet. So,
But to his point, Lance, he's played very well.
I like him.
He was involved in a couple of stuff. I mean, that he get that rebound off was it Atkinson? Was it Atkinson? Yeah, he shoots it, and it's basically like a pass off the goalie's pad. So it's not like he's been invisible. He hasn't. He's been involved in play. He's actually back-checked very well. He kind of picked up on that from last season.
Yep.
It's see, I know a lot of players, a lot of people give JVR a hard time but he's not that point-producing machine that he used to be. I think he rebounds incredible this year. I think once he gets his flow going, he's one of those streaky players. Well, I know I had him a couple of times in fantasy, and I picked him up, and once he got one goal, I activated his ass, and all of a sudden he gets you 7 in a row, and you're like, okay, that's it, he's done, and then you pull it off. But yeah,
I think his play will better itself when Allison comes back in too. I think those guys look great on a line together, and I think Allison's ability to get in the board battles and all that stuff and throw one right out in front where JVR likes to sit, I think is only going to help him too. So we shall see. I think they're missing something on that third line, and it's obviously Wade's ability to get in there. That's why
Lawton
I think
is just
Broussard will come back in there.
He's not a third line.
Can I bring up?
Everybody comes back.
Chef,
can I bring up something?
Sure.
I think it's funny when we all talked about like the players that were in reserve. We all mentioned Hayes. We all mentioned Allison. You mentioned a couple other people in the minors. But Frost was like far from that list, wasn't he? I mean, you think about it, like he's healthy, but I guess either a mental game for him or whatever. It's so funny that he should be able to step in somewhere, I think, at this point. And I know, like, I see Lance salivating at the bit, chopping at the bit to get to something. But I'm just saying, it's not that he can't be a good player down the road. I think he can be. I just think that his attention to detail is going to be his downfall if he doesn't. I think, his defensive game was lacking when he came up before, and they kind of tried having G cover his assignments in that first couple games. That didn't work out. When he came up before, it was a little bit better, but he wasn't consistent enough. So I think that if he does his tour of 20, 25 games down in the minors, I think he can get some semblance of his game back and then be included in this mix. I think if people like Allison just jumped right past him because they were more attentive to the details.
Well, I think it's not only that. I mean, he played like 4 periods in 18 or 19 months. And that's a lot of hockey to miss for a guy who really hadn't even established himself quite yet at the AHL level. And he's not a world beater right now. So, I mean, I look forward to him joining the discussion. I haven't given up on him, but he's got a ways to go before we start talking about him getting into this lineup. Eric?
Yeah, so just a couple things going back to the to the third line. I was somebody who really wanted Broussard and really wanted Atkinson on the same line with Lindblom actually before the season started, before the team took the ice in the first game. I just thought that Atkinson and Lindblom were wonderful with each other on the third line just during training camp, and they had a lot of chemistry. It doesn't surprise me at all that Atkinson and Broussard and Farabee are taking off like this. But what I do think is with Van Riemsdyk, kind of unrelated to the third line, with Van Riemsdyk and more so talking about his $7 million price tag, when we gave him that money, or when he signed that contract, I should say, I thought that was more so the market price for him at the time. And also, it's very, how fitting that, a few years ago price is not this year's price. Like, he clearly is not worth the $7 million now. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to see Fletcher aggressively move him, especially during a flat cap era, but also on the other side of that, who's going to take $7 million in a flat cap era. It's somebody that JVR, I think, will contribute, obviously, on the power play, probably mostly on the power play at some point this season. And yes, he is a streaky scorer, so he'll prove his worth, in 1 month at least. And that 1 month, I think the Flyers will make up a lot of ground. Then kind of going back to the Morgan Frost point, Morgan Frost always was somebody that I felt like as a fourth line center, he can earn his stripes up there, and it was mostly because he had a small sample size. He hasn't proven he can stay healthy. So to me, it start with baby steps. And I thought that, kind of having those minutes managed on the fourth line made sense. A lot of people just wanted to slam him right at 2C because Kevin Hayes went down. And to me, it does provide him an opportunity to show off what skills that we all expect him to have. But I don't think it's realistic. I think what is realistic and what is working is currently what's happening right now. Eventually, once Fletcher does decide, hey, it's time to bring up Morgan Frost, I do see at first Nate Thompson being the odd man out, and then at most, I think Frost goes to third line center, and then we drop probably Malton back to fourth line.
Yeah, well, these are just anticipating where I wanted to go, because there are some players right now that look like they're kind of playing their way out of the lineup. Lance, I know Eric just actually wrote a piece about the NAK. We want the 2020 knack, but we ain't going to get them right now. And the penalties are just awful. And he's really the guy who can play the best in terms of pure skill set out of that trio. But Zach McEwen can skate. He brings toughness. And I think he can play even better than what we've seen. I'm not saying he's been great, okay? Don't get me wrong. I think Nate Thompson, with Patrick Brown looming, Nate Thompson is not long for this lineup. I think he's going to be spotted in and out of the lineup. He's 37, took a dumb penalty the other night. We could do without. Look, I love the spirit of sticking up for Claude. What was that, in the Seattle game, or who's Bastian?
Yeah, it was Seattle.
Okay, and that's fine, but that was not a good penalty he took the other night. And listen, he's, like I said, he's 37, and if Patrick Brown is anything, it's at least he's a physical stabilizer, and he should be better than Nate. We'll see what happens with that. And then you have some of the guys coming off of injury, like Wade Allison, like you mentioned. So I think we're in for a shuffle as early as Thursday night when Patrick Brown will come in. I'm not saying he's a world beater. Look, he's like Zach McEwen. He's a waiver claim. So these guys aren't going to be great, but we can't. What you don't want from a fourth line is a line that beats you, that with their dumb penalties. And another thing is Nick handles the puck like it's a bomb on a stick sometimes, So.
Yeah, I think that NAK, like Eric said, is really playing his way out. He's really getting the Ronaldo treatment from the refs, if you will. He's just got a label on him every time he steps on the ice, and once you have that, it's really hard to get rid of. So I welcome a guy like Zach coming in there, and really, it was a great waiver claim. Flyers needed that grit in the lineup, but I think he's a little bit smarter to it. I think NAK really runs around the ice a little bit too much and kind of goes all out and then lays some hit that is dirty or something like that, and like you said, gets too many penalties. I think Sealer and McEwen coming in is really great to add that what Knack actually brought to the table. I think Philadelphia overpaid him a little bit in that sense when they gave NAK a new deal, but to each their own. And it's kind of troubling when you see Frost get that opportunity, and then the Flyers feel the need to bring in Nate Thompson and Brown and all these other guys to really fill that void that they thought he could. But in that same token, depth is always a good thing, and that is what this team has. Even though they have their second line center out and possibly one of their brightest young stars in Allison out, it's still working. We're still competitive, and years prior we wouldn't be, and we would be well out of it. So I like the depth signings that Chuck has been able to bring in. So we shall see what how much longer we're going to have to endure Hopefully Hayes and Allison can come back in, and I really want to see that full complement of this team go up against some of the greatest teams in the league.
Yeah, especially in their own division. Cautionary note about Hayes with the type of injury he's had 2 in a row now, and anything with the hip, groin, sports hernia, whatever area, core muscle surgery is something that takes a while to get over. We might not see Kevin Hayes look like his old self until like February or something like that. We have to be prepared, might even in the March or April. Eric?
Yeah, I was going to touch about Kevin Hayes. Like, I don't think things are going to be back to normal. As soon as he returns, which is rumored to be around the time that the Flyers play the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know if he's going to be on like a load management sort of case where he's coming in and they're going to ease him into the lineup as far as his minutes are concerned. So in that scenario. And this is just pipe dreams because I know the answer already, but I'm going to ask the question. How much do we think that Morgan Frost is the next center that should be recalled from the Phantoms?
Absolutely not. I am a huge hater, if you will, on Morgan Frost. Everybody thinks that, but I really just don't see him, taking off even at that level. So why bring him just because you want him to be something that he's not yet? I really think that we do have enough people that can play center with Giroux, with Lawton, with Thompson and everybody else there, and Brown coming back in. I really don't see forcing the issue if he's not proven himself even at the AHL level consistently yet. I think, what does he have, 1 assist or something down there right now?
I'm not even sure. I know he hasn't played well. I mean, listen, Morgan Frost is never going to play fourth line. If he is, he's probably not going to be in the Flyers organization. He's a top 3 line guy. I mean, the idea that you, even in the same discussion as Thompson and Brown, is really not something the organization is going to entertain. So I think you got to put it in that context. I think you got to look at it like that, to be honest with you. But if you're talking about Eric, thinking about could he be part of a deal for somebody like Tomas Hertl or something like that, or Dylan Larkin or whoever, although I think the Red Wings feel like they're ready to take their Red Wings and fly somewhere. I think I'd be on board with that. I think the time to win is right now. You just signed Couturier up. G is up at the end of the year. He's got to make up his mind where things are going. And just being competitive and being a nice playoff team and barely getting in and getting smoked in round 1 is not what they're up for. So if you're kind of pointing towards would they deal him, I guess that's a question I have for you.
Yeah, I kind of am pointing towards that because you're right. Like I always think, you earn your stripes and your fourth line and your third line, wherever you fit. But when Hayes returns, is Morgan Frost a better center than what Lawton would be? Like, you have to ask these questions to yourself at the NHL level.
Lawton is not, to me, an NHL center, an NHL third line center of any quality. He's not really, he doesn't think the game well. He's more of a winger. He's okay at fourth line center. Okay, again, it's just my opinion. Chef, you can weigh in on this because I just don't think Lawton can really hold his own as a third line center, or else the Flyers wouldn't be looking for one every year. And as far as Brassard, is Brassard going to be the same guy in February or March that he is right now? I mean, you've seen guys like Filppula kind of flame out as time goes on because they're older, and Brassard himself said he didn't think he was an NHL center anymore last year.
I agree. I think Lawton is better suited to wing. To what Lance said, about G being a center, and if you're talking about Lawton being a center, then you're not utilizing your players at their best spots anymore. So if you're coming down to that, Lawton, in my opinion, is not a center. He's better suited to wing, and he should be on the wing. He's much better, but G is much better on wing as well. I just think that if you're going to fill those other spots, if you're looking for a third C, then you need to fill it like they did. They got They went outside the organization and got what they needed, and they got a little bit of a surplus on it too. But to your point, Isaiah, I don't know how much Brassard is going to keep up. I mean, right now it looks like he's amazing. I mean, his play has been fab. Oh, did I just do that? Yeah, I did. So that line on his line right there. I mean, he's playing like he was playing 5-6 years ago. I mean, he's brought himself back. He's revitalized himself on his team, so which is good. I mean, I just don't like you to your testament. I don't know how long it'll last. You know, if they got, you know, you'd spoke to other players being trade bait for whatever reason or for Hurdle, you might be onto something there. Because we have alluded, and I stand by it too, that this roster will look significantly different the day after the trade deadline. I just think there's a team. You can't tell me like after, you know, like I said, if this road trip they hang in there against, you know, Edmonton, they go 2-2, and they showed like they were in this series, and you get this style of play, this hang in there play, come March, and come this trade deadline time. This team is going to look different. Chuck is all in. He's made the moves to get them to change the culture, to get this team to where it is. He's not going to sit on his hands and go, you know what? If I only had one more center, I could, or a backup that's, you know, hey, you know, we haven't even talked about Jones. He had a great game, but like you said, is he going to be able to hold up? So, like, all these things could happen, and I'm going to go on record and say this team's going to be 4 to 5 players different at trade deadline than it is right now.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
No, that is a lot. So this is, in short, this is a very fluid situation all year. Lance.
Oh yeah. And remember, we had Jason on, and I asked him a question. I said, in reality, you know, how many players are going to get traded? I said 1B goalie. I said 3 defensemen and 6 or 7 or 5 or 6 forwards. And he's like, that's a lot of change. That's too much. Well, who knows it? Well, what the hell? It happened, you know? So anything's possible, and I don't put anything past Chuck, because I think he was crafty this year, and he's ready. He's ready, and he sees how much of a response he got from the fan base out of this too. The fan base actually appreciates what Chuck has done, and you can see it. Like Twitter was like, if you went on Twitter or you went on any social media about the Flyers 3 months ago, you know, you were writing a death sentence. This team was moving somewhere. You know, everybody was dead. It sucked. Now all of a sudden, like, there's life to this team again, and you know, it's not going unnoticed by everyone up the ladder.
Yeah,
I would say, unfortunately, give it like 2 weeks, and you'll have your people saying trade Giroux and all this other stuff. So, I know. Try not to be pessimistic about it, but that's what I see on Twitter a lot.
Well,
for sure. Yeah, it's going to change.
Yeah, everything's fluid. Yeah, Lance, go ahead.
So, yeah, to that token, if they're going to move anybody, what would you guys think about Morgan Frost for a Dylan Stromey right now? He's on the trade market. Was a number 3 overall pick back in 2015. Is kind of on his way out there. He's got a little bit of a contract, you know, with Chicago. But if they ate some money, or if they went out and, you know, packaged somebody else up in with Frost, would you be willing to do that?
Well, let me weigh in here. Dylan Strome. The problem with Dylan Strome, he's strictly an offensive player at this stage of the game, and you know, it's been a few years now since he was drafted like 3rd overall by Arizona, right? He's not a good skater, so that would give us 3 plotting guys down the middle. I'm not a big fan of that, and he doesn't play on the other side of the puck the way I think AV would want him to. So I think we'd be taking on somewhat of a project. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the only real reason why I would be excited about Dylan Strome coming to Philly is if we somehow pulled off a gimmick where we could call up Matt Strome and then have to try to pull off this weird like Sedin twins thing or whatever. But I don't think that's like so like unrealistic. It's not happening.
Yeah, and Matt's no speed demon either, because he certainly has NHL hands. So yeah, I hear you. But yeah, we'll be looking at that circumstance with what's going on at center and taking note of it, because I think it's going to be an issue. I don't think Lawton, he's okay for now. I think a lot of times people jump to certain conclusions about players, and you got to wait 10, 15 games and let it all settle in a little bit. While at the same time, you can't have the team falling back too far in the standings. Right now, we're not at that point. Let's see what happens as they move forward. But, the Flyers played a couple other games since we reviewed the opener versus the Canucks. And, it's really like when the Flyers beat the Bruins, Chef, it was kind of like a replay of the opener, except the Flyers got the better goaltending. And the Bruins did not get great goaltending from Jeremy Swayman, and their Flyers doubled them up 6-3 there.
Yeah, one of the big question marks on the roster was Martin Jones, right? I mean, let's face it. I mean, he's coming off of very weak, and I followed San Jose for a long time, and I still do. They were the team that the first expansion, and when they came in, they had the badass jerseys, and everybody wanted them. So, yeah, Pat Falloon, all that stuff. So I've always had my eye on him. I always liked him, and the thing with Martin Jones is, he had possibly a worse defensive core around him last 3 years than the Flyers did, and now he's getting a little bit of structure. And if he could, if like they sat him back deep in the net, like he should be playing. He's a big goalie. I just think that maybe, if he doesn't overextend and make stupid mistakes, and if they can get reasonable, above average defense in front of him, I think he's an adequate, and I say adequate. I don't know if he's going to be here at the trade deadline. I think he's a piece that could get moved, because if you're looking like you're going to be running, I think he's one of those pieces that's got to go. Whether or not I don't think you could run with any of the minor league guys. I know one of these boys just wrote an article on it.
Lance, yeah.
But yeah, Lance just wrote an article on the boys, the kids in the minors. But I don't think you could run into a playoff series with two young goaltenders like that. I think you would need solid behind Carter Hart just to right the ship here and there. But I mean, surprisingly, he was very good in that game. And I think I was just as surprised as everybody else. And I know a little bit more about him just based off of the years of following San Jose. So, I mean, they played a good structured game. They didn't let the Boston, the Pasternak, the perfection line get out of control. I mean, I think it was just a well-played, solid defensive game, and they got very good. They got good goaltending, and it showed, and it was a pretty solid win.
Yeah, timely saves. Carter Hart looked a lot, sharper, certainly that as he had in the opener. And of course, they were coming off of the game where everyone was so worried that Hack was going to get his revenge, and I forget who it was on the Kraken that said, yeah, we want to win this game for Hack. And meanwhile, they've hacked their start to a 1-4-1 beginning, and Flyers had a bit of a laugher that night after the Kraken admittedly came out forechecking. They looked like, yeah, this is a disciplined team. I can see why they won the game, and they won their first game, but the Flyers ran circles around them by the end.
Yeah, it was one of those games where I was confident that the Flyers were going to go in there and kind of beat down Hack's team. And it's not a matter of like, Dave Hackstall is coming back to Philadelphia. Who do you think he is? Even though that's a nice little storyline and whatnot. It's one of those things where I looked at the roster right after the expansion was over with and just was not impressed. And I don't know how against teams who are pretty much paying all the way up to the cap. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to compete. I feel like their start is exactly what I expected. Once I saw, who they drafted, and I thought the defense was going to be better for sure. I thought goaltending from Grubauer was going to be better. Those things are surprising, but to me, when you look at the teams they've played so far, they've definitely been the underdog, and they've played like it. I was thinking to myself when I was at the game that I was a little bit pretty much confident that the Flyers were going to dominate, kind of control that game. And Yeah, I know Hackstall, coming back to Philadelphia and playing against his, one of his old teams. That's a nice storyline and whatnot. But to me, when you look at the rosters and you look at the expansion draft, nothing really stood out as far as, wow, this is going to be, an incredible roster. I will say some parts of the Kraken surprised me about how the defense isn't what I thought they would be. I thought Grubauer would be better between the pipes. Same with Drager, but it's unfortunately the start that they have right now. It's kind of exactly what I thought how it would begin for Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about, we talked earlier about JVR and his salary, and Jake was out there as well, but they wanted that stalwart Carson Turinsky. And I get it. They want to have minor league depth, and they didn't feel like the Flyers' big guns were worth paying in the long run. They obviously have a plan, but still, I thought they could have done better than Carson. I think Carson's a tweener at best, and you should draft for value. But, hey, that's Ron Francis has his all – he has it all sussed out, and he's going to outsmart all of us. You just wait and see in 10 years, because just like he did in Carolina, it only took a decade. It was fine. Carter Hart, Lance, is off to a decent start. He had 2.64 goals against average, save percentage, .914. And, if he's in that neighborhood, maybe inching more toward 920, that'll be good. But, behind him, we have some questions about Martin Jones. And you wrote an article, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with the article. You know me. But maybe what you're trying to get across in your piece for Flyers Nitty Gritty about the Flyers pipeline, and the article is entitled, if it ever comes up, why trying to gain an accurate depiction of the Flyers' goaltending prospects' true worth may be harder than you think. Lance?
Sure. Yes, of course, Carter Hart looks solid once again. I think that was the big question mark coming into this season. Could he return to the player that he was, a couple of years ago in the playoffs for us? It looks to be that way right now. Obviously, the team went out and tried to, help him out this season, with the signings on defense that they brought in that we've already talked about. Martin Jones was a bit of a head scratcher, like we already kind of were talking about before. I thought there was a lot of other names out there that could have came in and could have helped out, but who knows? We can't sign everybody that we want to. They have to be willing to come as well. But with my article that I wrote, I mostly wanted to point out in the fact that as far as goaltending, and I wrote an article as well on Coach Kim, the goaltending coach, the week prior. It's just a lot of questions coming up the pike in net for me. Obviously, they got Hart, and that was the main guy in their system. But everybody else has kind of been a question mark for me. And, when you look back with Stolars and Lyon and Roddy Ross and all those failed attempts at, developing a goalie there, you have three guys in the system now with Sandstrom mostly being the front runner at this point. He's 24 years old, and he was drafted back in the third round of the 2015 draft. But to this point, not one of these guys have any NHL experience. They've been here for quite a few seasons now. And while they look to have decent numbers this season down in Lehigh, with Sandstrom, when I wrote this article last, at 2.05 goals against average and a .937 save percentage, I have to say that, don't be overlooking those stats or be overly impressed by them, because I think it's more so the defense. These guys are still not winning games. Both him and Urson are not winning games at the AHL level. And, Erneson, before he was signed, only won 38% of his total games the year prior in the Swedish Hockey League. I'm a goalie, I'm a long-term goalie, and I just don't see any of these guys that are currently signed, Ustimenko in that mix as well, as that guy that is going to come up to the Flyers eventually and make a point to make this team out of there. I think they're playing off of, Cam York, Zumala, Wyatt Wiley, Hogberg, Mason Millman, all being down at the Phantoms right now, and their group of defense is just stellar. I don't know why they can't score goals. The Phantoms' offense can't score any goals to help them out, but I would not get overly excited about Sandstrom, Erneson, or Ustimenko, who's actually struggling very much so, even at the ECHL level right now. Well, I'd rather see guys signed and brought over, mostly in Ivan Fedorov, and even Kozlov, who just got drafted, but both those guys been playing in the KHL, which is arguably the second highest or best league in the entire world as far as hockey goes, and having much success.
Well, okay, let me weigh in then, Eric. I'll get your thoughts on that. All right, what's the pecking order now? The pecking order for me, and again, Eric, and anybody else can weigh in after I spat my nonsense. The long-term best future guy in their minds, from what I understand, is Samuel Ersson. That's a golden boy among the three that are here. Ustimenko looked good in ECHL, earned his promotion to the AHL, and then he got hurt, and he's kind of starting all over again in a way, and then the golden boy comes in. Sandstrom has tremendous athleticism. He has pretty good size, and he just started getting it together last year, at the end of last year, and he seemed to have continued on that path. And he's actually probably the third goalie in the organization right now. Now, that's probably where they're at. I'm not sure much more beyond that, what they think of Sandstrom, other than he's playing well now. I will say one thing about their defense. They have names. They're not playing great. In fact, that team is not playing with a lot of cohesion. They're not playing with a lot of energy. Nobody, offense or defense. And when Tyson Forster looks ordinary, to me that means these guys are thinking too much. And maybe it's adapting to what Lappy wants them to do versus what they were doing with Scott Gordon. And they're going through that process like, a new team would. So I'm not sure. As far as Fedetov, now I have asked both Alex Appleyard and Bill Meltzer about Fedetov. They look at him as like a backup at best, like an Anders Nielsen, big body. He's playing in a league where the game is slower. It's a lower scoring league. His numbers can fool you. That doesn't mean he shouldn't come over at some point. They still have his rights. And the other guy is, do I have that name?
Let's see, Kolosov.
Kolosov, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a kid. I mean, goaltenders take 4, 5, 6 years. And I always remember Jakob Markstrom was drafted in 2008 by Florida. Never really made it there until he got with Ian Clark in Vancouver, who he was really a salvage operation. A reclamation project. And then he became the goalie he was fated to be. So it takes time in goaltending. That's why you got to keep drafting goalies year after year. But I hear you. I think they are unsettled. And like Chef was saying earlier, if they had an injury or something, Felix Sandstrom hasn't shown us enough where they would trust him to back up Carter Hart going into the playoffs. Okay, that's it for me. Eric?
Yeah, I was going to kind of mention, so I look at Felix Sandstrom's numbers right here in Lance's article. The 93.7 save percentage to 2.05 goals against. To me, that's incredible based on what I see, like, the team's getting outshot 22-8 at the end of the first period. Yeah, there's names on defense, but at what point is this just comedy of errors offense under LePerrier. It acts like a detriment to the defense anyhow because you can't possess the puck outside the defensive zone. So it's putting a lot more pressure on top of guys like Sandstrom. But the guy that I've always had circled was Ivan Fedetov. And it's actually very interesting, all the things that you brought up about the KHL, the pace of the game being slower. It's a lower scoring league. It does make his numbers pop a lot more than anybody that's in the AHL. But to me, I look at the guy like Fedetov, and just by raw stats and size, from what I can tell, he reminds me of a goaltender that I'll always love, and that was Pekka Rinne.
Okay. If he was 3/4 of Pekka Rinne, he'd probably be better than Martin Jones is right now. So, hey, I'm sure they're looking at everything. He's got his contracts lined up, and I'm sure with what's going on in the KHL, the Flyers still drafted Alexei Kolosov. So it's not like they're giving up on Russian goalies in general. So that would be, to me, a signal that maybe Fedetov is not necessarily in their immediate plans, but I'm not sure. Lance?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't really understand why he hasn't been brought over. He's been playing past 6 seasons in the KHL. It's not like with some of the other guys that are already here, they were playing the MHL, which is the junior AHL version for Russia. And even over in Sweden, not even in the SHL until later on for those guys. So I really don't know why he hasn't been given a chance, but at the same time, he signed back in the KHL because there's a multitude of guys, of subpar guys here already. And in just my mind, when I watch his games and footage on him, he's solid. And yes, I get it. It's a bigger ice, but at the same time, so is the SHL, overseas with a bigger rink. So with those guys giving a shot, I really don't see why this guy isn't. And if you look at potential goalies or best goalies not in the NHL that are prospects for teams, he ranks very high up there on anybody in the league that they have in their system and goal. And to this point, I really just don't see why he isn't over here, as opposed to some of the other guys that didn't even have winning records overseas out in other leagues. This guy has been a phenomenal talent through the playoffs as well, and had winning seasons in the second best league in the world. And he has yet to been given his shot. Yeah, he's 24 as well. So I mean, at what point are the Flyers going to give him his shot, or just trade him or cut him loose? Because I mean, you still haven't even brought him over here to see about giving him a real shot.
Well, I think the thing is they have his rights. With the Russian Federation, they're in no hurry. They don't, if their hand is not forced. And I think I have to kind of go back to what Bill Meltzer and Alex Appleyard said. They don't think his game is going to translate into a starting position in this league, and apparently they don't think that highly of him. They think Samuel Ursan has a much brighter future, or else I think Fedetov would have been here by now. So that is something that maybe you want to look up with Alex, or take up with Bill Meltzer, and even maybe, Russ Cohen and get something in there. Gents, we're going to have to wrap up. But, Eric, I want to get to you, and then Chef will get to you for some final thoughts before I preview the upcoming games. Eric?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that about Fedetov very quickly. I wonder how much of it is just that he wants to play in the KHL. That's really, I think it's that simple. Because I think some Russian players look at the KHL as the NHL. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we could maybe do a little more digging and find out what the circumstances. Is this driven by what he wants, or is it driven more by the fact that the Flyers like having him as like an option, but all these other guys just keep stepping in front of him because they think they're, that they're more talented. So, gents, we're going to wrap it up. Chef, let me give you the final word on some of the things you've heard in the last little bit.
Yeah, I don't think the goaltender of the future is any of those in the minors there. I think the backup goaltender is going to have to come from outside this organization via trade or something. I don't think any of them are good enough right now to step in, or maybe even next year to step in. Maybe Harrison is the best possible, but I still don't think. I mean, and who knows? Ustimenko was playing well, but and he got hurt. Maybe he shows us something this year. But that for the goaltending situation, I really think they're going to have to go outside the organization to get something that is worthy of a backup here. And I think they're going to do that in the second part of this season. I've gone on record and said that come trade deadline, I think they're going to get somebody that's more stable than Martin Jones.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that works out. So, gents, we're going to call it there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the panel for any final thoughts and then give us your information, your social media coordinates. So, Chef, we just left you. Why don't we start with you, Lance, and go from there?
Sure. Final thoughts. I think the team will have a time on this road trip here. It's going to be a true test of their worth, and we shall see if we can pull at least one or two out. As far as a backup goalie, I think Martin Jones is still questionable in my mind, but hopefully he is able to pull it out. But you can always find me on Twitter at LNGBASSIST. The number's 39, and I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Our pleasure. Eric?
Yeah, as far as the final thoughts are concerned, I believe we're going to see a ton from as far as NHL depth and what our team is made of in these first 10 games without some of our priority players. And I would like to see the Canucks. We'll see them again. I would like to see these undefeated teams with a healthy lineup. I would like to see the Florida Panthers with Ryan Ellis in the lineup. I think the Flyers are better than what they've shown so far, and not that they've been bad. As far as Martin Jones is concerned, I think with Kim Delaball, he's going to revitalize a little bit of something, not come back to prominence, but I think he'll be okay as a backup for this year. I don't think it goes past this year. So as far as a goaltender coming from out of the organization's concerned, I think that's a next year thing. But as far as social media, it's pretty much the same across all platforms, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, it's Eric Reese, PSN. My name right there, if you guys can see, ERICREESE, PSN.
Yes, that's good to know. Yeah, we are an audio-only podcast for now. That could change in the future. Yeah, both Eric and Lance are very prolific at PSN and FNG, respectively. And we thank you so much for coming on. Chef?
Well, I will say this. The road test is the first big test of the season. I think they either go 1-1-1 or 2-1. I think they have a chance to beat Vancouver, and I think they have a chance to beat Calgary. I think they lose a heartbreaker to Edmonton, where it's a game they could have won. But who knows? This team is going to be in the mix. It's going to be a decent amount of moves at the trade deadline, and I really think they got a chance to wow some people and other teams and go, oh, my God, where did they come from? It's going to be a surprise, I think, to a lot of other teams, that how well structured and how well coached, I'm going to say, that this team can be down the long run. So, and you can catch me and you can argue that and you can dispute that with me all you want. I welcome it. You can catch me on Twitter at Chef to the left B. That's Chef, the number 2, the left B.
Excellent. And my name's Isaiah, ISAIAH_520. If you're crazy enough to follow me, you can get me at Isaiah. Don't forget the _520. The schedule ahead is Wednesday night, as we're recording, that would be tomorrow night, in Edmonton, following night in Vancouver, night off on Friday. Saturday, they play the Calgary Flames. And we'll come back and talk to you either Sunday or Monday, November 1st. And then they're back home against the Arizona Coyotes. And then they go back on the road, and we'll take it from there. And, of course, you can follow the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck. We have a Facebook page. We have a YouTube channel. Just look up the O&B Puckcast on YouTube. We're on 12 or 13 different platforms. Please subscribe, follow. If you're on YouTube, hit that notification bell so you make sure that you do not miss a show. And if you'd be so kind on the platform of your choice, particularly Apple, if you would give us a rating and a review, it helps move us up the charts for Philadelphia Flyer podcasts, and that's very, very important. And before we go, just a reminder that the O&B Puckcast and Flyers Nitty Gritty are brought to you by Jim South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. 40 years of the best cheesesteaks, hoagies, and fries in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. And if you live down near 400 South Street, they use DoorDash. If you can't make it over, you got to have that delicious food right to your door. It's on your bucket list. You got to have that cheesesteak. Come on. So remember, Jim's South Street, 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. And until next time, everybody, take care.